I'm going to ask a question that I get asked every time I do a Q&A. And it's sort of like a two-part question because like one of them is like almost like there's two potential scenarios. People always ask, what do you do like if you're going out to eat, right? Like how do you account for the calories? Maybe what foods do you choose? How do you figure this out? And so there's two different scenarios here that I like to consider. There's the scenario in which you're just going out for a random bite and this isn't like an everyday thing. And then there's the other scenario where maybe because of your work or whatever it is, you eat out very regularly. You're going out to restaurants on a consistent basis. So my question to you is, in those situations, how do you communicate to your clients what to do? Like what recommendations do you give? What do you have them look for? What do you say based on these two different scenarios?
Yeah, it's slightly hard because even within those scenarios, I'm going to communicate with different clients differently. Like even if it's just Texas Roadhouse with the family and like more of a one-off, but it's someone who consistently is having a hard time staying on track, hasn't made progress for a very long time, isn't happy about their lack of progress, really wants to make progress, I'm going to encourage that person to make one of the better choices on the menu, track the food at the restaurant. Most restaurants have nutrition data publicly available, published on their website, and treat it like a normal meal. You know, you can treat their kitchen like your own kitchen. You can make, even if it's not on the menu, you can make a request. You can make this isn't Texas Roadhouse, but like even if egg whites aren't on the menu, you can request egg whites, for example, rather than an omelet with 4 whole eggs or some easy swap like that. Yeah. And similarly, the client who is consistently traveling on the go, eats out a lot, doesn't have a lot of time in their day-to-day schedule, doesn't enjoy cooking, whatever it is. Something that I've actually done historically is I've had that client, when we start coaching, right when I read their assessment and I see that they're eating out so often, I ask them to list their 10 to 12 favorite, most highly frequented restaurants. And then after they do, I have them pick 2 to 3 menu options for each restaurant, and to look up the nutrition information for that and to include all of that for me to review basically. And then from there, we can have a back and forth about like, usually there isn't a lot of back and forth required because they've done all the legwork themselves, but then they have that 30 to 35 options of, okay, at Chick-fil-A, the grilled nuggets, and this is my favorite sauce, even though this sauce has some extra fat, the grilled nuggets have no fat. So I'm getting 40 protein, 10 fat and 12 carb in this. Or it's the grilled chicken sandwich and I can, fit this with it. But having those options for all of these restaurants is just like for so many people who I've worked with historically, they don't even realize that you can make fat loss friendly options or make good fat loss friendly options at fast food restaurants. And so making those small swaps, the grilled this instead of the double bacon cheeseburger, like, oh wow, that saved me 500 calories. It has the same amount of protein or a little bit more protein and is going to help me continue to make progress without feeling like, oh, had the double cheeseburger, I'm off track, rest of the week is shot, restart on Monday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I especially really like the idea of like, hey, pick your top, 5 to 10 restaurants you go to on a regular basis. Pick like your favorite 2 to 3 meals and like, let's go through and look at total calorie counts. I think that's essentially your game planning, right? It's like you're game planning how the meal is going to go. I think that's super important. The other thing that I agree with you 100% on is there's 2 different types of people in each of these situations. You have the person who's being very, very consistent and like on point, and the person who is not being consistent and rarely on point. So for the person, it's just like a random one-off meal, and the person is being very, very consistent, they've been crushing it, like whatever, I'm like, go enjoy yourself, whatever, it's not a big deal, go have fun. And sometimes if the person is like relentlessly consistent, I have to really push them to enjoy it. I have to be like, hey, send me a picture of like what you have. Like, I want to see you have like what, like, I'll say, hey, go through the menu and tell me what sounds the best to you. Like, what sounds like something that you would love to eat? Like, calories aside, fat aside, sugar aside, what do you want? Like, I would love to have the ice cream sundae. Then you better have that. I want you to send me a picture of you eating that. Like, I want you to have it. And like, that's a good for that person. For the person in that situation who's not consistent at all and is like rarely ever doing good, it's like, do the exact same thing you said. Go in, hey, let's look at the menu, pick like what options you think would be best and tell me why. So there's sort of like an educational experience. And then if they pick the wrong options, then I'll be like, all right, yeah, like maybe the fried lasagna probably isn't the best choice. Like, what about like the grilled chicken breast with broccoli and something like that? Like, yeah, I guess, yeah, that probably is better. Okay, cool. But then from there, one of the best things I've been able to do is create something called bright lines. And I didn't invent this idea of bright lines. It's this, they're created by this guy named Alfred Bandura, who's like really the major leading expert and researcher around self-efficacy. When a bright line is something that you create, it's like a rule or a law that you have to follow. And a lot of times people get anxious in these scenarios because there's a lot of ambiguity. They don't know what they're going to do. It's like, I'll just sort of play it by ear. And when they don't really know what they're going to do, there's a lot of anxiety because they don't know what's going to happen. So a bright line is like, here is what you're going to do. Number one, this is the meal you're going to have. Boom. Like, you don't even need to open the fucking menu. You know what you're going to get. Number two is another big thing that I'll have people do is, especially if it's a big meal, because a lot of restaurant meals like are huge and they're just like easily double the portion size of like what you should be eating. I'll say, as soon as you order, I want you to say, oh, by the way, can you bring me a to-go box with the meal? And I want you to cut the meal in half and put the other half inside the to-go box at the beginning and close it. So immediately cut it, put it in, boom, done. Close it. Done. You don't look at it. If it's sitting on the plate, it's so easy to pick at. It's so easy just like to keep eating and convince yourself whatever I'll eat. From the beginning, you set your portion size, you cut it in half, put it in the to-go box, boom, you're good to go. That's another bright line. Get that out of the way. And then from there, it's really hard to like really fuck it up as long as you've done that. But if it's a restaurant where they have chips, or they have like whatever it is, like chips or something at the very beginning, usually what I'll say is, you get one handful of as many chips as you can get in one handful. So you see the basket, you put your hand in, get as many as you fucking can, put it on your plate, and that's what you've got. Like, the most I've seen people able to get is a couple hundred calories worth of chips with that. Like, it's pretty difficult to get over like 250, 300 calories unless you've got Shaquille O'Neal hands. So like, it's and in which case, if you've got Shaquille O'Neal hands, you've probably got a couple extra calories to spare anyway, so you're probably fine. Yeah. So like, it gives you an option to like feel like, yeah, I'm getting a bunch, and like you can actually get a fair amount, but it's not overdoing it. You're immediately limited in portion size, and I think those are super, super, super helpful, especially for like that, like just whether it's the one-off meal or if you're the person who goes to the restaurants consistently. That's a good rule set to follow. The other thing here with especially the person who does it consistently, intermittent fasting is an underrated tool for this person. I mean, assuming you don't struggle with binge eating, or if you don't have an issue with food, saving most of your calories for that meal is just a very smart strategic play that's going to help you.
Yeah, intermittent fasting and even probably just as, if not more beneficial, a protein modified fast where you're having like two super high protein meals during the day, low carb, low fat. And then at dinner, you have so many calories and you don't have to hit like 100 plus grams of protein in that meal. You can just have like a normal protein serving, extra carbs and fats.